Good evening and welcome to Gunner Shot. Today we're going to see something different, and different means different. It's about India showing a mirror to China. You know, I've been telling you that I'm going to talk of something which I've gleaned from Chinese writings, not the normal thing which you get from South China Morning Post. This is from Guancha. And I came across something very interesting. When I read that, I thought I must share it with you. Oh, parts of it, at least verbatim. One of the most intuitive articles I've come across. And I'll give you the link. I suggest all of you have a look at it. It gives you a different perspective of how China views us. It gives you a completely different view from the normal thinking, the normal comparison, and all that. And it actually, at the end of the article, I felt that the Indian strength is something some people in China have started respecting. You say, sir, what is this? But I must show you that article, we'll read that article, and what I'll do today is something different from anything else. Once I finish that discussing that part of the story, I'd like you to ask me questions on that, discuss that, and then we'll move ahead. Okay, because it's thought provoking. It's hatke. Well, let's go. Okay, what is this whole story all about? I mean, that's the most important thing. I saw this article called by Fang Ning, and it's the headline which caught my head. Is India the mirror of China? Wow, I said, what's this? Then I went into a little detail. Who's Fang Ning? And then I found out that he's one of the guys, a top shot in the Chinese hierarchy. And he's written this article in Guancha, and it comes at the top as one of the top articles. Who is he? वैसे तो he's just a research fellow at the Institute of Political Science, Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. I mean, for those of you who don't know, that's the highest think tank in China. Period. Okay. Just to read out his biography, he is a political scientist and expert in philosophy and social science in China's 1,000 Talents Plan. बात करता रहता है ना राज शुक्ला, General Raj Shukla, about 1,000 Talent Plan and all. ये उसका author है. And a former director and secretary of the party committee of the Institute of Political Science at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. He is a thinker of the CCP. Okay. And is a chair professor at the Sichuan University. Okay. And he's written theoretical works and wo for China. Very interesting, isn't it? And this chap writes this article. Okay. He says India is the mirror of China. But before that, let me explain to you. It's a story of his visit, or the experience of his visit to India. Where all did he go? He went to Delhi. He went to Golden Temple. Interestingly, I don't know how it came, but he went to Golden Temple. Then he went to Bombay. That's what I could glean from his thing. And what stuck him was this word, this strength called spirituality. He doesn't write as spirituality, but I infer it as spirituality. That is why I've shown in this thumbnail that the mirror which India is showing to China is about spirituality. What India's, and that's our greatest strength. Which probably for the first time I've seen a Chinese talk of it. and probably understand it. And I think many of us who, I remember this guy like Amitesh Behra who says, "Oh, China's got this, China's got that." He's a xenophobic character who keeps coming regularly. I'm sure he's attending today also. You should understand. The Chinese have started seeing something beyond GDPs. To me, this article was a revelation. And that is why I'm going to spend some time on it. Okay. What is it right? What is he right? I have not edited it, nothing. I just lifted excerpts and I'm going to talk. He writes, of course, this is all translated from Chinese, Mandarin into English. So the grammar will be iffy, but get the content of the story. He says in the past, when we talked about the difference between the rich and the poor, we talked about wealth and income gap. That's what the normal Chinese talk of. But at this time, I realized that the difference between the rich and the poor also has spiritual factors and values. The guy is at the top of the shack, starts talking like this, there's something serious. I hope you guys are all thinking. You put your thinking cap on. We're not going to talk of GDPs today. I mean, we'll talk of that nonsense later, but this is mind blowing. And then he says Indians, mainly Hindus, have their own worldview, outlook on life, and values. What's striking is values and outlook. And then he says at least they are different from most of our Chinese. The Chinese concept of a better and happy life is first of all material. He himself is saying our life is material. According to the traditional Chinese saying, it is prosperity, longevity, jubilee, and wealth. This is the Chinese way of looking at life. And before you guys think, oh, he's written for India and all, please, this is in a hardcore Chinese Mandarin magazine. It's like hard porn of journalism. Then he says, Indians, especially Hindus, are very different from us. Their greatest hope is that they have a good afterlife. Suffering in this life is for happiness in the next life, for eternal life in heaven. Saat dhanam ka rishta. I have not seen a Chinese write like this. When it comes to the gap between rich and poor in China, the next sentence is often eliminate polarization, eliminate the gap between the rich and the poor, and achieve common prosperity. He says that's useless. Then he talks about his trip to Golden Temple. He didn't understand. From what I could see, he couldn't understand the concept of the Golden Temple and what it is. But what he writes is very interesting. Okay. He says, once we passed by a large courtyard and many people were queuing up outside the gate to the courtyard. Line laga hua tha. Looking from the outside, the courtyard is bright, and the Indian scholar on our team, that is the guide who was with them, that whoever, interpreter, guide, liaison officer, in our team gave us a question. He asked these people, this Chinese team, he asked us to guess what these people were doing in line. He wanted to test our observation ability. And then he says the person in our line of work must be observative. But he took us that day. Several of us discussed for a while, like shopping. They were all empty-handed, queuing up to watch movies. He says they could have been shopping, but they were all empty-handed. They could be queuing up to watch movies, but they were young and old people. And there were no couples in that queue. They were waiting in line to give alms or get something. But from the way they were dressed, I mean, this is the thing. Are they waiting to get arms? कि भाई कोई बिका ये दे रहा. And he said, look, the way they were dressed, they were very neat and well dressed, and they were not poor. We looked at it for a while, and we really couldn't see any differences or regularities. Looking at the bright light in the courtyard, I think it's like watching a circus. There's a big shed in the circus performance with a bright spire inside, and there seems to be some music. We didn't guess correctly 3 times. And finally, we couldn't guess. We said, don't bet a joke. What are you doing? It turned out to be a Sikh golden temple. And the people outside were waiting for arms according to Chinese terms. It was sack porridge. Langar. Guru ka langar. भाई गुरु का लंगर में तो सब जाते हैं. This is the way he is described Golden Temple. Picture है उसमें original article में. Original article का somewhere I'll show you. I've got the link. Otherwise I'll put it. He couldn't understand because the concept of all going into a temple, eating together, the same food, langar kahin bhi chale jao. I mean, you go to langar in Hashimara, in Gurdwara there, or here it's the same thing. Concept nahi tha. Then he was taken to Bombay. When he was taken to Bombay, he was taken to Dharavi. Just imagine. And he writes, oh, in that place, people are poor, people are this, people don't have, they can't be protected from environment. Air comes in and, all that. Rain comes in, all that. Okay. And after that, where does he go? He goes to Reserve Bank of India. After all, he's a high chap. He came to meet probably he met the governor of Reserve Bank or whoever. So, that's what he said. He met the chief economist of the central bank. He described Central Bank of India. From what he could what he described, I could make out that it is a Reserve Bank. I mean, if you go to the Reserve Bank, the director's office is at the top. The governor, directors, assistant governors, they're all at the top. There's a dining hall there. It's a beautiful place. And when you get onto that, on one side you see the Bombay Harbour, and the other side you see the rest of Bombay and all that. This fellow went, whatever, briefing, and he says everything, and we'll talk. Then he describes the chief economist. He says the chief economist of RBI is obviously a Brahmin. He studied for a doctorate in United States, and his English is pure, absolute to the core. He was very friendly and kind, and he introduced the economic and financial situation of India in detail. So, but what was troubling Fan Ning was not the economic situation of India. The fact that he couldn't understand India, what was happening in that Dharavi. Because from Dharavi, these guys went to RBI. Okay. So RBI, he was given a great briefing. He must have been told GDP, this, that, all that, which Amitesh Behra wants. But that didn't excite him. The question which is in his mind comes here. He asked a question to the chief economist. What is the relationship between the development of India and the culture? I mean, that's what it is. Then he says, people say that Indians are very smart, and it is true. This is where he starts admitting. The chief economist immediately understood my voice outside the string. That is the hatke question. He stood up, opened the office door, and took me to the lobby of the top floor. Actually, if you go to that briefing room, you can see out. Walking to the floor to ceiling glass door window, he pointed to the distance. He says, please look at the in the direction of my finger. Oh, not far away, we can see a large slum which we went to yesterday. So he saw that. Okay. Do you mean this by Indian culture? He showed that slum, the chief economist, and is this what you're talking of? Maybe that word Indian culture and what he actually asked might be different, but this is the translation from the thing. And he nodded, and this Chinese was embarrassed. He thought he was embarrassing the chief economist. Then look at what the chief economist said. He said, look at our Mumbai. Mumbai has a developed economy and finance, and city is also building and developing rapidly. He pointed to the slums and in the distance and continued, isn't that a great advantage for India? In Mumbai, there are more than 2 million poor people living in the slums, but do not complain about heaven or earth and do not hate officials or the rich. Isn't this the greatest advantage of Mumbai? That there is a huge group of poor and workers who obey the fate of God. And there's a fact in India. See, if you're poor, the poor don't hate the rich. They strive to be better. That's a different story. All of us strive to be better. You go to, those of you who've been to Bombay, right? I used to stay in one of the biggest houses, individual houses in Bombay, called the Gun House. If ever you go to Colaba, go there. You will see 2 guns there, which I got put. It's always called the Gun House. Just 50 meters away, there's a slum, which is in a civil area. The approach to Colaba is all a slum. But they're not antagonistic to all of us. And we are not antagonistic to them. We both exist and make progress the way it is. But that's not the Chinese way. That's not the communist way. The communists have just finished off those slums, taken them out. It's okay, you go to Shanghai and Pangai and all these places, you see shiny new things. What about humanity? That's what this man understood. More. Okay? So, the fact is that he started understanding the thing called spirituality. I've just put 2 paragraphs of that article. I thought it was a fantastic article. Fantastic article. It's the strength of India. The strength of India is not our economy. Strength of India is not our military. Strength of India is not our political system. The strength of India is the people of India and the spirituality they have. Right? It is this strength of our ancient scriptures. And for the first time, an article like this coming in Guancha actually blew my mind. That was the top billing. That suddenly the Chinese are seeing something beyond the normal. The Americans will never see it. Forget them. They're useless guys. Spirituality. And let me now do some thinking a little away from the normal. You see, our land is blessed with spirituality. And this spirituality has rubbed off on other religions which have come into India. See, India is a huge land of religions. We've exported religions. We've exported Hinduism. We exported Buddhism. We've exported Jainism. We have exported them. Equally, we have taken in religions and syncretized them with Hinduism, whether it's Islam, Christianity, or Zoroastrianism, or Parsis, what they follow. Or for that matter, even the Jewish culture. There's a syncretic nature in all these religions which are in India. If you actually go into their depth, I'm not talking the radical variety or the evangelical variety. Those are extreme, fringe idiots. They are idiots actually. We're not talking of that. Or nor am I talking of the idiots in Hinduism also, fringe variety. Look at it deep, you look at it, our scriptures, they've rubbed off on other religions, the Abrahamic religions as we call it, the religions of the book. At the core, that is probably the ideal form of secularism which we need. When you say secularism, it's not secularism as much as syncretism. Why am I talking all this? I should be talking of China. I should be talking of GDP. I should be talking of military. But when a top guy from China comes, he's not looking at your GDP figures and all. He's been to, I mean, mind you, it's a choreographed move from Delhi. He's gone to Golden Temple, gone to Mumbai, gone to Dharavi, gone to the central bank, that is the Reserve Bank, all that. And he goes back and writes about spirituality. And he says, is China being shown a mirror? Is there something we have to rethink? Seeing in the Indian story. Boy, we have to be really proud of ourselves. That's why I say, for me, the best strength of India is the common man. It doesn't matter which religion is he from, as far as he's an Indian. Right? I think we have a lot to be proud of. And I like that thinking which he got. He says, India lives for the afterlife. We don't live. You see, there's another thing which the outsiders can't understand. I mean, this is something which I've experienced with most of my generation. I'm sure the next generation will also do that. After a point of time, we stop living for ourselves. We start living for our children and our grandchildren. And this starts the moment we get a baby or two. Thereafter, our life is not ours, it's the children. And when the children grow up and they have their children, our life is now for our grandchildren. They have their afterlife. The whole concept of moksha. These are things which are very difficult for someone to understand. I've seen old people refusing to die despite being completely invalid till a particular point of time in life, and something happens and then they say, yeah, abhi moksha milega. That is value system. And this coming from one of the top guys in the political system of China is significant. And what does it tell you? Let me get back to geopolitics and all that. Enough, I've drifted. We are a damn strong nation here. We are already there. That's the point. Okay, anyway, now let me get back to in Gonja they have started this new page called Between Dragons and Elephants. What are the things they're talking about in this page? They're talking of Indian government think tank without Chinese market, it is meaningless. After 5 years of interruption, China-India flights are taking off. Modi government received a joint letter, all that. Okay, right? Today, there is more news about India in their what shall I say, in their media than what I saw even last year or maybe even 4 months back. Normally, the only source you could get where you saw India discussed was in South China Morning Post. An article used to come once in 3 days. I had to really search to get to know what's anything about India. But today, the kind of articles which are coming here in this just one thing, because I'm not I so somehow I'm not able to get hold of Bidu and Weibo. I mean, I don't know how to get it. So this is my reach. But this is pretty hardcore. Huh? The coverage of India has increased in depth and what? And all this I picked up in the past 1 week, 10 days. Then this fellow Victor Gao, he is the official, loudmouth of Communist Party of China. He's written about the border issue. Actually, he's not written about the border issue. He's actually written about Tibet. He says on the border issue, 2 points must be made clear to India. That's the heading. But when you read the thing, it's all about Tibet. And they're bloody worried about Tibet. When you read these fools, you see, we have to understand how they write and how they think. And let me tell you, they have no grip on Tibet. They are damn worried. Their only reaction can be violence. And if you get past that violence, and violence is the weapon of the poor, weak. I'm reminding you this. Violence is the weapon of the weak. What does he say, this joker? He says, never tolerate foreign hostile forces making trouble in Tibet. So that means he knows Tibet can be troubled. It is not integrated with China. Says people, all these countries, basically looking at India and USA, use the Tibet issue to undermine China's stability and national unity. And then stability of Tibet is directly related to the stability of whole of China and other 56 ethnic groups. Very important thing. Very, very important. Oh, gems आता है ना कभी कभी वो निकाल लो. See, China is not a monoethnic society with just Han population. Han population is only maybe 90%, but best 10 are Xinjiang, Uyghurs and Tibetans, and there are 56 other ethnic groups. If these ethnic groups occupy 40% of or 50% of Chinese landmass, if these groups go against China, China is thank you. And they're worried. Because in all the years of existence, these groups have never got integrated into China. They have not been integrated into China. Oh yeah, China has enforced Mandarin on them. They take children away at young age into centers, and they're taught Mandarin from day one, their history, ye wo. But at homes, they still go back and learn their own trick. And the Chinese are doing their utmost to root out the Tibetan culture. When you say Sinicization of Tibet is what? It is Hanicization of Tibet. And removal of Tibet culture. But they're not succeeding. If China had succeeded in all this, they shouldn't be writing like this. Understand their weakness. Then he keeps saying Gaushikai line. What is it, Gaushikai line? It's Ganges. Past Nepal. Implicit in that whole story is that he wants China to get into Nepal, undermine Nepal, get hold of Nepal, and then ask for the Ganges line as part of Tibet. In doing all this, they've lost China. They've lost Nepal now. They've gone back to McMahon line. And he says finally in this article, 2 points must be clearly expressed between China and India. First, we firmly do not recognize the illegal McMahon line. झूठा आदमी है ये. Because they have recognized the McMahon line as the boundary between Myanmar and China. The McMahon line also extends that side. That part they've agreed, only this part they have not agreed. So here comes a subterfuge, the typical Chinese subterfuge. And second, the illegally occupied southern Tibet area must be returned to China. That's his line. Who'll give it to him? He can go and hop. He thinks he's a great thinker. The pity is that our media entertains this ass. I must say asshole. He talks. And he talks nonsense. Why should we talk? If you give such buffoons a platform, the next thing, this article, again a very interesting article. It says India's self-positioning in the multipolar world. I found it fascinating. What does he say? He says whether India can stand on its own in the Sino-American competition is not growth. It's not about growth. Whether it can turn confrontation to cooperation and turn the slogan into reality. Whatever that it is, what? Then he goes on to say, today it is expected to be the fifth pole of the multipolar world. Yeah, mind you, it's a very serious way of putting it. Sometime back, there were articles in South China Morning Post which called India the third pole. The cartoon which I keep showing every day and day out of Narendra Modi, Putin, Xi Jinping, and Trump at four corners of the world and holding it indicates that you're the fourth pole. Now he's talking about the fifth pole. That's okay. Whether he's first, second, third, fourth, fifth, it's okay. That's not an issue. Then he says US is self-proclaimed military and innovation. So he's characterizing these poles. US is a pole because of innovation and military. China is for manufacturing and scale. Europe is for values. Russia is strong. What about India? Says what kind of a pole will India be? He's not discussing that no more. Is India a pole? He says what kind of a pole will India be? The world has entered a multipolar pattern, and the key to whether India can really stand firm lies in its growth rate and also its values and models that can be recognized by the world. Now, here is a connect with that earlier thing, values. What are you going to be recognized for? Your values. The Chinese have started recognizing it. I'm sure the time will come when many others do recognize it. The Western world will not, because their thinking is different. But I'm sure a country like Israel recognizes it. I'm sure a country like Russia recognizes it. Russia recognized it long back. That spirituality, that inner strength, long back. He says, which are the things which propel India to be a fifth pole? He says, its economy, population, unprecedented growth rate of nearly 3 times the global average. They don't have it. He says 400 million middle class are rising. These are facts. They are now digging out by 70 billion US dollars of foreign investment per year. They don't get it. digital consumption system of 800 million people with UID, Aadhaar, and Unified Payment Interface (UPI), and cheap traffic as the cornerstone. That he's telling you that there is no way India can be stopped. He can't. No, his father-in-law can't stop it. The transaction flow of UPI is like the busiest financial highway in the world. देखिए, इसीलिए हम बोलते रहते हैं इंडिया में बड़ा दम है. We don't know our own strength, and we like idiots look at others. That's why I say, come to gunner shot. I'll make. Look, I must blow my own trumpet once in a while. I've always believed we have strength. We need to identify that strength and use it. What is good, we need to blow it up. What is not so good, we need to make it better. And this I have done throughout my life. That's why I speak of India. I don't speak of India just for fun. It's not rote. This is not nationalism. This is not propaganda. This is not, no. This is the truth. We need to realize our own truth. Right? Then he says talents from Indian Institute of Technology and Indian Institute of Management are scattered all over the world, which is not only capital but are also the bridges of soft power amplifiers, soft power amplifiers. Its cultural afterglow in Southeast Asia gives it natural affinity to Southeast Asia. Yeah, when that guy starts talking of IITs and IIMs, we should realize it's not a matter of ranking. Ranking has bloody got no value. I give little money, that chap will rank me number one everywhere. Yeah, you give it to these Westerners, they'll rank you first everywhere. You have to feed them money. But if you do ranking, then the value system guy tomorrow. Naturally, everyone talks of IITs. Why? Because Sundar Pichai is from IIT Kharagpur. Yes. Or someone else is from IIM Ahmedabad. Oh, yeah. Why shouldn't you be proud? On a lighter note, here is a professor from IIT. People don't listen to him. People go and listen to idiots who don't know what their bloody asshole from their elbow is. This is our India. But the Chinese have started recognizing it. Okay. Anyway, that's not the thing. But the fact is, you need to realize our strength. Of course, he says these are the problems of India. I agree with him. We also know it. We are energy dependent. Manufacturing cannot compete with USA, China, or Europe. We are still far away from it. I agree. Innovation is outstanding, he says, but we lag in AI and quantum science. There are millions pouring into the labor market, but there is lack of jobs. Right? He says in Bangalore, young engineers are tapping the code with the cheapest traffic in the world. But whereas in Assam, farmers are worried about reduction of water in the Brahmaputra. Now he is now saying, look, you better, if you want to get ahead, make amends with China so that water in Brahmaputra you can get. Otherwise, they're going to constrict it. This is implied threat. And he also shows this as a contradiction in India. Then he says Vietnam, Indonesia, Bangladesh, and all are doing better. He says finally, in this competition, India cannot speak for itself but must prove that its scale and stability are irreplaceable. You need to do it over the long term. We will. Of course, like any Chinese, this guy, after like any Chinese thing, he finally gets to the fact that India should cooperate with China. Only then it can become a fifth pole. But that's his way of thinking. But the best part of this whole article, he only is talking of India as the fifth pole. And then he talks of the ocean as the new stage, not the border. He talks of the Indian Ocean. Malacca, Hormuz, Strait of there's Babel Mandap, are like three gauge determining whether India can move from a regional power to the global stage. There, of course, he says US has got Diego Garcia, China has got Djibouti. What will they do from there to control this area? They can do bloody damn all. Of course, he being a Chinese has to write for China, so there he talks of Djibouti. And finally, he says only by finding minimum way of cooperation and competition with China and transforming energy, water resources, and Indian ocean security from a game to co-governance. Now he's talking of co-governance with whom? China. We now know they cannot do without India. They don't have they see these articles like this, which they very rarely write. A normal writing is that, like Gaushikai type. But when you come across these articles, if you see, you get to know that they know where we are. We don't know where we are, but they know where we are. Then this Lin Win Mang, he is a typical Hindia hawk. He says, why is India so naive strategically? And then he talks of how Modi ji went to China. He says, we are still with USA and against China. That's the way he looks at it. And I agree with him. We are not with China. It's a different thing. We are not with USA also, but the way he looks at it, we are with USA. It serves my purpose. Let it go. Then he says, in order to reduce sensitivity of visiting China, Modi deliberately arranged a visit to Japan before his visit to China as a form of diplomatic hedging. Correct. Modi did not participate in the 80th anniversary of the victory of the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and World Anti-Fascist War held in Beijing. That military parade. He is correct. Why should we go with him? India's role at this, here comes the thing. India's role at the SCO Tianjin summit was not positive. Why? Because we didn't clap whenever the Chinese wanted us to clap. We gave our point of view. We didn't agree. He says, in addition to not attending the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Plus meeting held on the afternoon of September 1, India also continued to bring bilateral differences to the SCO multilateral platform. We brought it when our Prime Minister said, you shouldn't be building CPEC and all, which impinges on other sovereignty. The hawk also is there. These chaps also are writing. So when you see these hardcore or Mandarin articles and all, you see the stream also, the hardcore stream and the thing. And then he goes on to say India is working hard to strengthen diplomatic coordination with US allies. Looks to jointly promote Trump's administration enthusiasm for the Indo-Pacific. But he also says, look, USA recently passed a bill so that there's a crackdown on the Indian outsourcing industry. And India still lives in strategic expectations. What is the strategic expectation of China? Is that India aligns with China. That's their expectation. Then he says India also overestimated the possibility of strategic competition between China and the USA. He says, okay, that means he's looking at equivalence with USA. He's projecting equivalence with USA. Washington needs a partner who can balance and contain China. And this partner is not India. It could be Japan. It could be Germany. But not India. But he says even Japan and Germany are not partners for that. So that means it is no one can help USA in containing China. Yeah, no one can help USA in containing China except Trump. He is letting China uncontained. And then of course he says Washington has regretted the rise of China. So why will it allow India to rise? It will not allow India to rise. Then he goes on to say what Washington lacks is strategy with China, not allies. He says it's got enough allies. It doesn't need India. So in essence, he's laying out a case for India to join China. But that's Lin Wen Mang. Headlines. Top day before yesterday. Indian government think tank without Chinese market, it is meaningless. Yeah, we've said if you don't give us a market, there's no deal. What they have said, you want to enter Chinese market, be part of RCEP. You be part of RCEP is as good as doing a deal with Trump. You'll be killed. So our relationship with China is going to be problematic. Let's be very clear about it. And then, of course, they've given a commentary on that the Indian government is now encouraging overseas Indian students to return to, right? It's not return to China, return to India. But it's not easy because it's not easy for people. That's a commentary. This is a normal thing. Even these are getting, the point why I'm showing you all this is, all these are getting covered in depth in China, in their media, which even 2-3 months back, there was no coverage. And then he said, this is an examination of India's shipbuilding industry. What India can do and not do. They're tracking. They track your shipbuilding, they track your aircraft industry, they track your infrastructure, everything. And when you read all this, you see logic and you come to know where you're going wrong also. Because they're pretty sharp at it, let's be very clear. They're not fools. Huh? Okay. Then he says, why don't American Indians say anything about India and USA? I mean, we also have this debate. They also have talking about it. How American Indians don't talk about India in America. And finally, he says at the end of this whole story, this comes out in South China Morning Post. This is the only article which I picked up today from South China Morning Post. He says US still reaffirms India as the counterweight to China, irrespective of Pakistan, EU, all that. The US guys should pick a cue from this. The Chinese are not worried about Pakistan and USA being in the same bed. The Chinese are worried about India and Pakistan being friends. Sorry, not India and Pakistan. India and USA being friends. That kills them. They are worried the day USA and India act together against China is. I have always been saying this. But यार ये ट्रंप को कौन बोलेगा? ट्रंप को कौन समझाएगा? उसको तो पाकिस्तान चाहिए. So that's where it is. I've done for the evening. We've taken about 50 minutes. I hope you found it interesting. If you found it interesting, do subscribe. Because look, I will give you always something different. And it is researched. That's all. And I hope you liked today's show. If you liked it, give a thumbs up. And I'd request you all to give it to your friends, because the first half about that article by Fang Ning is, I thought, mind-blowing, and every Indian should see it. I'll put the link to that article in the description. You have to go to that and then put the translate button and you'll get it. It's must read.